Hey, happy Thursday to you. We've got a terrific Techstrong gang with a new first-time guest, a new gang member here. I don't know if he's wearing his colors or not, but we're going to be talking about big changes at the helm of AWS, and I don't mean open source. Strange cloud bedfellows with Oracle and a mystery person, as well as what's AI next to Google? All that and more on Techstrong Gang. Hi, everyone. Alan Schivel, Techstrong here on Techstrong Gang for you. As I mentioned in the opening, we've got an eclectic mix of stories to cover, as well as a brand new gang member. We're going to go right to it. Let me introduce you to Stephen Dickens. Stephen is one of our compadres from the Futurum group. Stephen, you can tell them about yourself. Welcome to Techstrong Gang, and why don't you introduce yourself?
I feel part of the gang, Alan. Thank you for having me join. So, as you said, Stephen Dickens, I lead our hybrid cloud infrastructure and ops practice here at the Futurum Group. Been with the business, I think I'm employee number 4, Daniel tells me. So I've been around for a while. Worked at a whole bunch of companies prior to that in product management and sales roles. So glad to be part of the gang. Is there sort of a special sort of bandana
you'll get colors. Hopefully it doesn't wind you up in trouble or anything. Well, you're from New York, but anyway, yes, you are an official gang member. Stephen, welcome and thanks for being here. Joining Stephen and I today to my immediate left, Bonnie Schneider, our Echo Insights editor and sustainable IT person extraordinaire. Welcome, Bonnie.
Thanks, Alan. Great to be here.
Thank you. And then to my far left, from the Bronx, we're down here in Boca for now, our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing great. Always happy to be here. Go Rangers.
Go Rangers. What about the Knicks? The Knicks won last night. They're up 3-2, but okay. Hey, enough New York sports. Let's go over. We've got some great stories to cover today. Mike, what do we got?
All right, well, let's get started with the changes of the leadership at AWS. Adam Zalewski He is saying that he needs a break. He's going to go spend some more time with the family. There's a new fella at the helm there. His name is Garmin. I think he used to run sales and marketing. But, Stephen, let's jump in here. A lot of times people read into these things and say, is there something more to this announcement, or is this just kind of a natural changing of the guard?
Well, I mean, I think I spent some time looking into this yesterday. I looked at some of the SEC filings for AWS. They didn't make a stock award to Zalewski for this year or for last year. So if you're not making stock awards to CEOs, is that indicative? Don't know. Am I reading too much there? I think the other piece to this is, whilst Amazon's posting good numbers, 17% in their last quarter for growth for AWS, and that business is now a juggernaut at $100 billion annually. Those numbers weren't as big as Google and Microsoft's growth. So if you're Jassy looking at this going, I need to be posting the same numbers to keep share as Microsoft and Google, maybe there's something there as well. So I don't know, Garmin. I think from everything I hear, he's going to be focused on driving growth. Obviously comes from a sales and marketing background. So growth and execution on top line is going to be something he's comfortable with. It's going to be interesting to see that play out for sure, I think.
Absolutely. I got a couple of thoughts on this surprise. So first of all, in terms of the stock, look, a CEO has a special comp plan, obviously. But the AWS way is that when you come on, you basically get 4 years worth of stock. And they're not options. They're flat out just grants of stock that, you vest over the 4 years. So it's not unusual for an average, for an AWS exec not to get new stock every year. So I don't know how much to read into that. But if you believe what was in the Andy's blog post and then Adam's blog post, right? Adam was there at the beginning of AWS in 2005. He stayed on, and I think through 2011 or something like that. and then went off and wanted to do his own thing. And he was CEO at a company and has done, several other ventures. And when Jeff Bezos was stepping down and Andy Jassy was moving up, they put on a search for a new CEO. And rather than hiring someone from within, they reached out to Adam, who was still an insider. And the story says is that he was brought in to groom the next level, the next generation of AWS leadership. And he's been there three plus years, whatever. I believe Adam's background is also heading up sales at AWS, that when he left, Garmin is the new CEO. Garmin kind of stepped into that role. So he was in what Adam was doing before Adam left AWS years ago. So it could be a natural progression of a leadership change there. Look, it's hard for AWS to grow. It's a lot harder when you do, and as Stephen said, $100 billion. I think they did $88 billion last year. It's hard to, grow at 25%. It's a lot easier to grow 25% when you're only doing 10 billion or 20 billion. And so I think that though the law of big numbers sort of catches up to them. But make no mistake, AWS is still the 800-pound gorilla, right? They rule the roost.
I think Garmin was one of the first employees at AWS.
He was also there in 2005. Yes.
So he's been around. So there's a fair amount of continuity there. The one big change immediately was, I guess Adam had been personally running sustainability issues for AWS.
Yeah.
That got transferred immediately to some other.
Yeah, the same day they made the announcement, later Amazon CEO announced that sustainability will move from something that reports directly to the CEO to community impact and global communications. So that's a big change because Amazon's been a leader in sustainability and with AWS and their sustainability partners. And that's growing as well because you have climate, tech, and energy efficiency all under that umbrella.
So Stephen, AI is all the rage. And of course, part of the problem with AI is that, well, it kind of consumes a lot of resources and generates a lot of carbon. So is there a correlation here, or is this one of these instances where it's just kind of a happy accident?
Well, I mean, I think so we've got obviously AWS, 100 billion. Amazon's a big business outside of AWS, and they've got a huge footprint with warehouses and distribution network. So I think it's fair that the ESG should have its own sort of tier one position in that leadership team. Yes, it's going to have an impact into AWS, and you're right. There's going to be a large focus on kind of the AI sort of wave and how hungry those machines are. But Amazon at a group level is thinking about ESG beyond the data center. They're thinking about electric vehicles and their partnership with Rivian. They're thinking about smart warehouses and how they do things there and supply chain. It's a bigger beast. I think you do make a good point around AI being hungry. These GPUs and these GPU farms are going to put huge constraints on data centers. We're already seeing, I saw something come across my desk the other day that data center providers are looking at putting nuclear power plants next to their data centers. We're going to see some weird and wacky stuff over the next 4 or 5 years, around hydro, around putting these data centers in cold parts of the world so that they can pull in natural sort of local environmental to be able to cool these things. Yes, that's going to be a part of the equation. And obviously, if AWS is running a $100 billion cloud business, they're going to have that problem probably more than anybody else.
They're all going to be in strange places. Do you think Amazon is suffering a little bit of AI envy when they look over at OpenAI and Microsoft and some of these other?
No, you know what? I think they're making their bets like any smart investor does, and they're not dumb people there. They have a significant, I don't know if it's a significant, but they have quite a stake in Anthropic. They're developing their own internal AI resources on top of that. If I'm not mistaken, they are the biggest consumer or buyer of the NVIDIA GPUs, right? But I think they're also developing their own AI chips. And Stephen, to your point about data center builds, yes, the knee-jerk reaction is build, drill, baby, drill, or whatever you want to call it. But I don't know if that's smart money. I think that's chasing now money. I fully think that as a result of ESG efforts and these kinds of things, we're going to come up with a better mousetrap to do AI computing that's not as resource intensive. And before I would go invest in a 12-year plan, because, how long does it take, like a nuclear plant, right? To go get licensing from the federal NERC folks and all of these things. And the time you build it, it gets opened and it's running, it's 7 to 10 years minimum. In 7 to 10 years, I think you're going to have much more efficient chips that'll negate the need for that. So I think that is, smart business people weighing short-term, long-term. How much do you want to put into that kind of stuff?
Or heavens.
Well, Alan, you make a great point. You look at, AWS has been investing in its own custom silicon with Inferentia and Trainium. We're on, I don't know what generations of those, but they've been at them for a while now. It's not something that they've just announced. They're on multiple generations of that. So I think they firmly believe that training and inference need a better mousetrap, to use your words, and they're already investing in that. So I think, yes, they've got a huge strategic relationship with NVIDIA, and everybody needs to have one of those, but there's also optionality. So not everything needs a H100 in order to be sort of in the AI space. There's a lot of stuff you can do on custom silicon, such as Inferentia and Trainium, that you don't need to have an NVIDIA GPU to achieve.
Right. I think you're right about that, in the sense that we're only using the GPU because we need parallel processing for training. But there's going to be, I think the software guys are going to actually have a lot to say about this in the months ahead, where they're going to say, you know what, there's more efficient ways to do this and include a mix of processors. But I would just say, don't forget those developers. I got more money on the software guys than the hardware guys.
Well, look, all of us are of an age except you, Bon.
Don't throw me into that. It's not fully grey yet.
Yeah, I get you.
It's not fully grey.
But the story of our careers has always been that software has displaced hardware eventually, right? First we do things in silicon, and then we learn to do it in software, basically. Will AI follow that pattern, or is this truly because in many ways, look, thanks to NVIDIA and AI, hardware is back, baby.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a subtle mix, right? Some things we drop into the chip because they're common and it's better to run them there and it's more efficient from a speed perspective. But other times we write better software to make better use of the hardware. And I think, to your point, it's more often the case that software carries the day than the hardware guys, because it takes them. I'm just thinking back in time when the virtual machines came out. How long was it before Intel got around to optimizing instruction sets for virtual machines? I think I set my watch by 7 years.
Well, they had a reason not to, too. They wanted everyone to just keep screwing servers in. But
we're going to talk about Google coming up, but Google announced Trillium yesterday, which is the 6th generation of their TPU. I think you're right on that cycle. It's just where we are in that cycle. I think we're seeing, new hardware companies come to market. We're seeing new processor types. I'm seeing more innovation in silicon than I've ever seen.
No doubt.
I agree that cycle is going to happen. I think it's just where we are in it at the moment. We're probably in the hardware part of that cycle. It's all about NVIDIA. It's all about custom silicon. We're seeing companies like Grok grow massively. I think I agree with you that software is going to come and eat that for lunch, but it's just when. I think that's probably maybe a couple of years away. If we knew when,
Stephen, we'd be rich on some island somewhere, maybe making a deal with Oracle Cloud.
So wait, one bet on that.
Go ahead.
Is hardware, Stephen, going to make a difference before or after 2030?
Well, I think we're in the phase, just going back to what I was saying, I think we're in the phase of hardware is where the game is at for AI. It's going to be the next stage of the cycle is where software is going to be.
One thing I've learned is you can't look more than 5 years out in technology. Who the heck knows? Lucky if
Nobody
you can go
knows.
2-3. Anyway,
Well,
though,
18 months ago, none of us were talking about ChatGPT.
absolutely. Or ChatGPT 4.0 that
Mhm.
came out. And,
Yeah.
and it's I played with it yesterday in my ChatGPT account, OpenAI account, and it's pretty cool. Now, does Google have 4.0 envy? We'll talk about that. But first, we're going to take a break. We're going to be back here. We're going to talk about some strange cloud, or the cloud makes for some strange bedfellows. Stay tuned. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
All right, and as promised, we're back, and we're talking about this expanding bromance between Elon Musk and Larry Ellison, where the folks at Elon's company have been using Oracle Cloud, and I can't help but wonder if that's just because they can't really use anybody else's because they're at war with everybody else. But we'll see how that goes. But it's a huge deal. 10 years, billions of dollars involved. Alan, thoughts?
So let me just frame the deal. And by the way, it's not a signed deal. It's more of a rumor at this point. The story came out of investors.com. The story goes that Elon Musk's new fledgling AI company, which I guess he thinks will do well if he wins his lawsuit against OpenAI for OpenAI being too commercial. But Elon's not going to be too commercial. I'm sure he's doing this for the common man. Is making a deal with Oracle Cloud to use up to $10 billion with a B dollars worth of Oracle Cloud GPU resources for Elon's non-commercial AI business that he's generating, assuming Elon raises the $6 billion in venture capital, and we'll see how much of his own check he writes into it, raises $6 billion to get this thing off the ground so it can compete with the likes of OpenAI and Microsoft and Google and all of the rest. To me, I look at this and I say, look, this is FOMO. This is pure FOMO. You got two players who are not big players in the AI space who want to be. And so we're putting them together. Stephen, go ahead.
So I'll give the flip side of that. So imagine if you had a platform with 4 million vehicles driving around the world, each of them with 8 cameras on them, being able to take real-time data around what's happening on streets, pedestrians, road markings, what's going on in the world. And you're able to bring that back to a Dojo supercomputer where you've built your own chips. Maybe that'd make you think about Tesla in a slightly different way than being a car manufacturer. I wrote about this in Forbes a few months back. I think everybody's thinking about Tesla as a car manufacturer. They are a million miles away from being a car manufacturer. We look at Google Maps and how those ugly cars that have to drive around and get pictures of. Elon's got a fleet of 4 million plus vehicles driving around every day, capturing all this information. You deep dive into the Tesla T's and C's, and I have. All of that data from your cameras is going straight back to build full self-driving capabilities and also a huge corpus of data that you can do things with. So I think about Tesla of AI is going to be about data sets. Who's got the biggest corpus of data? You know, Google with YouTube, you've got Microsoft with, and Google with G Suite, you've got Microsoft with what they've got with Outlook and all those big corpus of data. Who's got the biggest corpus of data of driving around the world with vision? It's Tesla. So you pull that back and you try and think about computer vision type use cases. how people navigate around the world, how people walk, how people cross the road, how cars drive. That huge corpus of vision data, Tesla's got a lock on it. So I don't think it's about FOMO. I think they already got that, and they've been doing this Dojo supercomputer for years anyway. They've probably got one of the biggest NVIDIA GPU farms today. So there's no there behind for a specific use case of robo-taxis and us navigating out in the wild. Tesla's got the best corpus of data out there. And Larry and Elon, they're bros, they're friends. I got the opportunity to ask Larry some questions at a recent Oracle event. He was effusive about full self-driving, guaranteeing that Elon's going to get it done, he didn't need to make that comment because we were talking about a database launch, but he unprompted talked about full self-driving. So it doesn't surprise me that those two are in bed together about a cloud project. Maybe I would frame it a little bit differently.
That's a vision I
Alan.
cannot see.
So I would argue differently, though.
Yeah,
right?
I've got that in my brain now, and I'm going to live with that.
So couldn't I just easily replicate that with a Uber plus Amazon plus a couple of car manufacturers, and I'm good to go because I'm going to get the same data?
So I think
Unit economics, Mike.
not only
That's
that, you
where you
need
can't.
permission.
Yeah.
This is the same problem we have with the LLMs now. They're using data that they didn't have permission to use. And now in the case of Tesla, as Steven says, people did sign and they didn't notice they signed it, the T's and C's that basically allows Tesla to suck all that information back up. And look, I never thought of Tesla as a car company either. I think they're a battery and software company wrapped around a car, right? I don't think their cars necessarily are particularly well made or great, but their battery technology is top of the line, and their software is heads and tails above anything that the big three or worldwide car manufacturers have, or it was. I think people are catching up. But I don't know if this is truly about Tesla or if this is about Elon Musk's ego, that he's not part of OpenAI and he wants an OpenAI competitor. Because there's more to OpenAI than Google Street View or Waypro all of it.
I mean, there's some weird ownership of OpenAI being a not-for-profit and then it transferring to a for-profit business. Elon was an original investor and bootstrapped OpenAI when it was a not-for-profit. So I think there's some weirdness there. And that's probably Elon just from an ego point of view and from a personal perspective, thinking that's just weird and that shouldn't be the case. I think you've got to detach that from what Tesla and his business interests are. Elon's got enough money to throw lawyers at something that he thinks is weird and shouldn't be the case. I think that's the OpenAI piece. I think his business thoughts are, I got a massive corpus of data. AI is going to be vital for full self-driving. It's going to be vital for what he's doing with SpaceX. So I think you've got to, him as a person and his ego is probably prosecuting the OpenAI lawsuit just because he thinks it's odd and he thinks he was wronged. You can judge that as you want. His business side of his brain is probably thinking, I've got to get an AI platform. You know, what Oracle's doing, they launched 23AI as a database. I got a chance to sort of get pre-briefed on that. They're doing some great stuff. I think Oracle OCI, the cloud platform's a great platform for data. So, you know, and he's got a relationship, probably a really close relationship with, with Larry that he doesn't have with AWS, and he doesn't have that with Microsoft.
No. I mean,
so I think you've got to detach the business from the personal.
It's hard to do that with that individual, but let's focus on the Oracle piece of it. Look, Larry's sitting out on Lanai, his island out there.
It's in Nashville.
Yeah. Then they just
Oracle's moving to Nashville, not Larry. Larry lives on his island, but and this is a huge deal for Oracle. Oracle, look, they do have a great cloud, especially for data, right? As you would expect from the database company. They are well behind AWS and Google and Azure. And they don't want to be. That Larry play, if you're not in the top three, get out. And Larry will keep chipping in there, chipping at that rock till he's in the top three. And, this is a $10 billion deal. That's 10%. Well, spread out over 10 years, so it's not all at once. But it's still a sizable deal. It's a marquee name. It's a great thing for Oracle Cloud, right? Because for too many people, they think of the big three and they leave Oracle out, right? And look, the fact that we're talking about Oracle and not an IBM cloud is probably music to Larry's ears anyway. But it's a great deal for Oracle Cloud, assuming they get these GPUs.
I'm not sure that the data they have is as rich as you might think, because most of it is in a structured format, and that's like a sliver of the data you need to train AI models, which is all unstructured. And I don't think Oracle has a lot of unstructured data. I think most of what they got is your classic relational database stuff. And we've seen databases run away from relational databases for the last 5 years, where everybody's...
But they have non-SQL databases. Like Oracle has a fire in every, or a
market leader in any of those other categories.
With their move to Nashville, they focused on health and healthcare. So if they're targeting that with data and AI, there's a lot, obviously, I can do with that.
It's true. So, can we hook up the healthcare data to the car?
Yeah.
You look at Cerner, number one, number two, against Epic from a healthcare perspective. Massive corpus of data for one of the most explosive areas that's going to happen with AI. Going back to what you were saying, they've got a MySQL play. So as unstructured, they made that acquisition that came through. So yes, we've got this traditional view of Oracle that they're the database company. They are still, but AI is going to revolutionize healthcare. They just bought the largest, one or two. I don't know the market share, but it's certainly number one or two of electronic patient record systems. And that's a huge corpus of data. You put in the vision stuff with Tesla and that relationship. And I think, Alan, the other thing I would say is they're number three by market share, number four by market share OCI. If you were to define the market slightly differently and say enterprise, and you took out Office 365 and G Suite, are they as far behind? Probably not.
Yeah.
So if you talk about enterprise cloud, rather than consumer cloud, if you will, and sort of end user apps, you take out G Suite and Office 365 and they never report those numbers independently. You take them out of the cloud numbers, it's probably a different story. They're still probably fourth place, but they're not as far behind. AWS, yes, but you take out 365 and G Suite from the other two, and it's probably a lot closer.
I don't disagree there. But, I mean, to give Microsoft and Google their due, they built their cloud offerings around us. Those were always meant to be the engines there that kind of drove it, right? What's interesting is, look, we talk about data and healthcare, right? Estimates are that as we move fully to electronic healthcare documents, something like 40 to 60% of all the data stored attached to the internet will be healthcare related, whether it's MRI films or other types of medical data. It's like early on in the internet, 40% of every bit running through the pipes was porn. Now it'll be healthcare, and that pretty much sums up where we are in society. So
if I have a heart attack while driving, Oracle will dispatch an ambulance that will likely be
only if Elon lets them.
They'll dispatch a Tesla ambulance to come and pick you up, Mike.
Automated driver.
Ambulance.
A full self-driving Tesla ambulance will come and pick you up.
Good stuff. All right, let's move on from our friends of Larry. We'll continue this saga of Larry and Elon, perhaps at another later date here on Techstrong Gang. But we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with the great Googly Moogly. Google announces a whole new raft of AI. real, make-believe? We'll discuss it. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Welcome back. In our final segment, we're talking about, well, what's going on with Google? They had their big Google I/O conference this week, and they announced all kinds of stuff, none of which is actually here and now. There's a prototype of an AI assistant that can talk and hear, help you find your glasses and debug code, they say. And then there's all kinds of new models coming down the pike that may be available later this year, early next, and there's even new hardware. What's going on with Google from your perspective here? Because it seems like a lot of this stuff is either I'm going to be a player or, as soon as I get off this couch, I'm going to kick some butt.
So Google announces more AI names and offerings. Wait, let me check my list of how many Google AI offerings and names I've seen in the last year. They all start running in. Whoever's making the names up's got a great job security over there at Google, because I'm losing track. I can't keep track of all the different things, and none of them seem to stick. We talk about FOMO. I don't think it should be lost on anyone out here that at the same week that OpenAI announced OpenAI 4.0 as a ChatGPT 4.0 as opposed to ChatGPT 4, which does some of the things that you just Google, is it Aura, something.
GPT 4.0, I think.
No, GPT 4.0 is the OpenAI, but that has, you can speak to it and it talks back to you and all of that as well. I think the thing with Google is, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot by just announcing too many things that aren't even available or real yet, because they want to be perceived as keeping up with the Joneses, meaning OpenAI, Microsoft, and it looks like this unholy alliance now of OpenAI, Microsoft, and potentially Apple, right? That's Google's worst nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And so they got to show that they're keeping pace. So they're announcing this stuff. When is it going to be real? Will it ever be real? Will it be any good? Who the heck knows? Stephen, what do you think?
Maybe take the flip side of that. Google I/O as an event's been scheduled for a while.
Mm-hmm.
All those announcements have been worked on for the last 6-9 months.
And maybe OpenAI stole their thunder. That's possible too.
So ChatGPT comes along. It wasn't by accident that they decided to announce it a couple of days before Google I/O. Google I/O's been... So it's... I don't see this as Google reacting to ChatGPT. I see it as ChatGPT trying to get ahead of Google. So all of these guys are trying to one-up each other. AWS wanted to brief me the Thursday before I went out to Google Cloud Next. Why did they want to brief me the Thursday before I flew out on the Monday to Google? Because they wanted to have AWS's stuff fresh in my mind before I went out to Google. So they're all trying to one-up themselves and one-up each other and get their stuff out early. The Google I/O sort of train would have been well established. They would have been planning that for 6 months. I was surprised by how much came out, considering Google Cloud Next was, what was that, a month ago?
Mm-hmm.
The TPU Trillium stuff. TPU V6 is now going to be called Trillium. As you say, the person naming this stuff has got a great job right now. Mm-hmm. What was wrong with TPU? So I've got to relearn some new words. Trillium. I don't think I'd read into this that it's Google reacting to ChatGPT. I think it's probably ChatGPT reacting to Google because Google I/O was a staple in the calendar, and that's been locked in. So maybe I'd see that a little differently.
But the difference is ChatGPT 4.0 is actually available right now. You could go on and use it today.
Yeah, I've been playing with it. It does a bad job of describing Daniel Newman wearing an Arsenal jersey, by the way. But I tried that one.
I saw that.
It gave him a full head of hair.
Yeah,
which is obviously wrong. But I mean, I think we're on the innovation cycle is so fast right now. Everything is kind of a 3-month turn. I think Google giving probably what is more a statement of direction than a product launch. Where these things are going to come. I don't know. I don't see that as a bad thing. It's going to be tough.
How do you think this is going to play out? Because what Google's really saying is that there's going to be kind of one master AI assistant that we speak to that will find your glasses and debug your software versus, we've had this conversation on a couple of shows now where everybody's saying, well, here's my AI, here's my co-pilot. So do I need all these other random co-pilots, or will there be, 1 or 2 that are going to do everything?
That's interesting. I don't know. Bonnie?
Well, you look at
Steve.
AWS has got Q as its assistant. Microsoft's got Copilot. Google's got what it announced yesterday.
Gemini.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Trillium that you mentioned, Stephen.
I think Google's put an official name on it. Gemini's the LLM, but they're just showing a prototype, something that they have a project called Astro or something like that.
Astro, yeah, and it's interesting watching both announcements because it gets you so excited, and then you keep reading and it says, oh, it's actually not available for the next few months for some of them. But one of the things I just wanted to mention about Trillium in their announcements that Google is making and across some of the other ones is that energy efficiency was mentioned in many of these new announcements that Trillium, for example, is 67% more energy efficient. And other Google AI models are boasting that they're able to be more energy efficient by only using part of the model at one time. They're able to kind of designate areas of resources. I mean, I don't know, but that's what they're saying.
That's good. I think that's evolution, right? You learn to build those efficiencies in. Shut down what you're not using. Right. Be more efficient. I think that's the way of things, if you will, and it's a good thing. But Mike, to your point, look, the Microsoft Copilot was primarily, first started in GitHub. We're going to see it in those Office 365 or whatever they call 365 now. Interestingly, I downloaded Copilot for my iPad. Pretty cool. I don't know if any of you have played with it. It works really nice. It's a good AI thing. But I think what your point is, are we going to have an Uber, no pun intended, to the car taxi business, but are we going to have an Uber AI who kind of wipes our nose for us and cooks dinner and does everything else? It's mama, or are we just going to have a series of very specialized AIs that perform very specialized tasks for us? And we probably all of the above.
I think we're going to have an AI throwdown. We're going to have the bots are going to battle it out. And
did they make a movie like that? Like the guy was who was it? Hugh Jackman was the manager of the bot, the fighting bot that was kind of beat up and stuff. That was a good movie.
I think it's going to be in which ecosystem you're going to be in. Apple's going to have its AI. Meta's already started rolling out AI across all of its platforms now. We've seen that. Google's got its ecosystem with YouTube, with G Suite, with what they do on the phones, with Android. There's going to be a number, depending on which ecosystem you spend the most time in, you're going to probably gravitate to that. So if you're an Apple fanboy, you're going to be in that ecosystem. If you're an Android person, you're going to be in that ecosystem. If you live your life in Microsoft Teams and Microsoft applications at work, you're going to use that. Depending on and you're probably going to have 2 or 3 of those. maybe your work persona is working with Microsoft and your personal persona is working with Apple, or you're in the Android, Google ecosystem, depending on kind of where your workplace is, whether you're a G Suite or a Microsoft person, I think there's probably going to be 3 or 4 of these big platforms. I don't see 20 of those big platforms because it's a network effect.
I think Amazon will be in there too. Don't count those guys out.
I think
I mean, what they're doing with Q is fascinating right now.
I'm not even talking AWS. I'm talking like Alexa and all of that, because really, let's be clear, your general AI kind of thing you're talking about is what we wanted Siri and Alexa and Google Home and all these things to be. We even wanted Clippy to be that back in the day, right? Going back. But, and I think they are. They're going to be much better than what we have.
Stephen, do you think that we will get the interoperability issues right? Because today it's kind of a pain in the butt. In my house, all the women are on Apple, all the guys are on Google. And nothing
is really
Really?
in your house.
Yeah, and nothing is interoperable. So everything's kind of a pain in the ass to like connect to somebody on video through Apple and Google.
No, it is in your house.
Yeah. So
Stephen, is it like that in your house?
I can't imagine a scenario where I'd be the green bubble person in a blue bubble world in my house.
Oh, I know. Something's wrong over there. Are you the king of your castle? What's all here?
all the boys are on Android, man. I swear by it.
Well, there's only one boy in my house, and that's me.
And you got to go
And
in.
if I had the green bubble,
God
they
forbid you don't
it's hard
put
enough to
that,
get my
that seat
teenage-
back down. But
Well, we got to go like download something like WhatsApp that we can all actually use. That,
well, look,
I think, Mike,
issue.
that's the point for me. There's going to be this big ecosystem. There's going to be an Apple ecosystem. There's going to be a Google ecosystem. There's going to be an Amazon ecosystem. But there's still opportunities for people like WhatsApp to be able to be that connecting layer between those two ecosystems. So whilst I see 3 or 4 big players emerging, and this is where the startup ecosystem plays a role, there's going to be these firms that pop up that go, we need a messaging layer, we need a communications layer, we need a social media layer, we need a something layer, to whether it's a home layer or there's going to be, like Nest was back in the day, there's going to be these firms that kind of come together that bring the connection points across these big ecosystems.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. Slack. They got Salesforce behind them, right? Runs ubiquitously on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll see that. Anyway, we're out of time for this gang episode. We will be back, not tomorrow, Friday, because we don't do it. As a matter of fact, soon we may be doing Friday shows, but not tomorrow. We'll be back Monday with a fresh Techstrong Gang as well as more content. But that's not all for Techstrong TV today. Immediately following this, we have our full Techstrong TV schedule on. If you're on Techstrong.tv, you'll see the playlist there. If you're on any of the Techstrong sites, your playlist is there. You can click to it right now. You don't have to listen to me say goodbye. Or you can go to Techstrong TV and watch any of our shows and interviews and content on demand on our YouTube channel or however you like consuming Techstrong. Until then, though, Stephen, what a smashing debut for a new gang member.
I feel like I need a bandana and I want to be on
Something
other
we got to
shows.
get you. You feel like you made your bones.
I need a Techstrong t-shirt.
We
That's
got
what I
them
need.
here. If you come on down, I promise you, we have waiting for you. Thank you. We hope to see you on again. Actually, you and some other analysts will be with us on Monday's show, I believe. So looking forward to that. We're going to do sort of Laverne and Shirley meet Mork and Mindy, if that doesn't make me too old.
A mashup.
A mashup, as Mike tells me they're called. But thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, as always, for being on.
Okay.
Mike Vizard, welcome, and thank you. And most of all, those of you out there, thank you for watching and hanging out with us today. Stay tuned for the rest of our Techstrong TV programming. Until then, I'm Alan Schimmel. We're out.
Cloud Native Now is the web's leading resource for the growing cloud native ecosystem. CloudNativeNow.com is your destination for news, thought leadership, features, and webinars on cloud-native architecture, Kubernetes, serverless, cloud-native application development, microservices, service mesh, cloud-native security, and more. Stay on the cutting edge of modern application development at Cloud Native Now.